trying to get logged on right now. I'm going to resend the link to them.
Trustee Brown,
Unmute.
Roz, you're muted.
You're still on mute, Rosalind.
would you like me to come back to her?
Sure.
Trustee Bruni,
Here.
Chair Criswell,
Here.
Trustee Daniels,
Here.
Trustee Hoskins Sutton,
Which I think she was having some trouble getting on here. She's on mute.
Linda, you're muted also.
Here.
There we go.
Vice Chair Isnard,
Here.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to announce that there are 2 executive sessions. The first executive session will be to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel. The duration is 10 minutes with possible action to follow in open session. Open session will take place in the virtual meeting room. May I have a motion for the first executive session? Did someone say?
Madam Chair, let's make a motion to amend the agenda, please.
You are correct. May I have a
Thank you.
motion to amend the agenda, making the second executive session originally planned for 10 minutes will now be 5 minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, and that takes us back to the, let's see, request for a motion for the first executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel, 10-minute duration with possible action to follow in open session. This will
So
take
moved.
place.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And Susan and crew, if Greg Goheen logs on, if you would go ahead and put him in the executive session at that time, please.
Or are we going to get put in executive session by?
Yes.
All right, we should have everyone back in the meeting. If we don't, Susan, if you would go ahead and pull them back. Okay. I believe we should all be back now. Let's see, Trustee Criswell, you're muted.
I was just talking away. Goodness. Okay, thank you. All right, excuse me. Let's see. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion for the second executive session for the preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property with a 5-minute duration with possible action to follow in open session. The open session will take place in the virtual meeting room. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
You opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Trustee Criswell, I believe we are good to proceed.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Mosher. And we're now returning the meeting to the open session. I'd like to announce that for the first executive session, excuse me, there is no action. For the second executive session, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the land purchase agreement for the UG downtown property. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. With that, that takes us to the end of this meeting. I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn the special meeting. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned. And excuse me, at this time, I'd like to call the budget hearing to order on excuse me, Tuesday, August 29th, 2023. With that, may we have roll call, please?
Trustee Ash,
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Bruni,
Here.
Chair Criswell,
Here.
Trustee Daniels,
Here.
Trustee Hoskins Sutton,
Is on mute. You're on mute.
Here.
Vice
Right.
Chair Isnard.
Here.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to invite the public to raise their hand in the chat for the opportunity to address the board. Addressees must state their name and address for the record before making any comment or asking any question. There is a five-minute limit. Do we have anyone in the chat?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Mosher and Dr. Knieven to present the revised proposed budget. First up is Dr. Mosher with the proposed budget revisions. Go ahead, Dr. Mosher.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kind of start where we left off on the 22nd. All right, so thank you for coming together tonight to continue the conversation. It's a big decision that I believe is before the board and the college, as education is so important that it truly is kind of a different entity than a public government or other entity besides an educational institution, just because of the value and the economic development and economic growth it brings a community. So it really is an investment in our future and the future of Wyandotte County. When we left the last meeting, this is the screen that we were looking at. It had the 4 different options on there. The decision was made to go ahead and not take action on it during that meeting. Looking at option 4, but to continue the discussion. So at the board's request, we did look at from the current 1 mil reduction, which is just shy of $2 million, at what would it look like cutting an additional $0.5 million, which is just shy of $1 million, and cutting another full mil, which again would be just about $2 million. So a total of about $4 million. One of the other factors that I believe we do need to consider is that this is not the only reduction that we're looking at for FY24 with the reduction in motor vehicle tax and the state tiered and non-tiered funding. It's basically almost add another $1 million to these numbers. So the very next day, we brought cabinet together and started having the discussion on how do we approach looking at additional reductions to our operations, keeping our mission and vision truly at the heart of the discussion. And as we looked at reductions in different areas, also to really focus on the present, but also the future. So, we have a task in front of us to serve today's students and community the best that we can, but we also must not lose sight of our responsibility to help plan for the future of KCKCC as we move into these next 100 years, and what puts the institution in the best position to be successful, so that our students and community can be successful, because they do go hand in hand. There's a couple other considerations that we touched on during maybe some of the public forum portion, and then in our conversation. So between 21 and 23, I think this brings it to really the reality of it in one simple chart. Inflation and the CPI has gone up 17%, yet the college budget has only gone up 7.3% in the last 3 years. And we don't know what inflation will be in this coming year. Breaking that down by year on the CPI, you can see the changes that took effect during each one of those years. And it did come down in 2023, definitely, but the cumulative amount is 17% increase. The college budget, though, it really has not expanded that great over the course of time. Then, though, there was some conversation around, we've taken advantage of these large increases in revenues, but that's at the local level. But if we look at our entire budget, it actually decreased in 2021 due to COVID, and the decrease in enrollment, and then thus the decrease in state funding allocation, especially tiered, non-tiered, and other revenues. In 2022, it only went up 2.5%. So in total, we're still behind at a -2 from 2020. Yet on the other hand, the CPI has gone up 15.9%. So the significant difference there, 13%. In 2023, the CPI and inflation did pull back, and our valuation set by the state, which is the entity who sets the valuations, it did go up 9.3%. But in total, we're still down just about 10% based on inflation. And we've all experienced the different price increases. We have to pay more to hire faculty. Everything that we're doing costs more money. There's more delays, and prices just continue to skyrocket. So that just kind of puts us where we are today. As I mentioned on the 22nd too, we also do have to plan for the future. So this is a view looking 10 years out. If we kept the mill levy flat, that's kind of our starting point, as all other organizations in Wyandotte County that I'm aware of are keeping it flat. Not saying that we should, but using that as our base. And then if we reduce the mill by 1, 1.5, or 2 mills over 10 years, it's it's -20, -30, or -40 million dollars in revenue over that time period. So looking at, we broke this down by 0.5 mil increments. So what you're seeing here is a kind of a quick glimpse of the areas that we were looking at in order to make those reductions. And Dr. Knieven will go in a little more detail in the end, but as you see, we went across the institutions from the operational side of the house to the instructional side of the house and the support side. And then again, if we add those other reductions from the vehicle revenues and tiered and non-tiered, the total decrease in these types of revenues would be just about $4 million. The left side of the screen is the same as what you were just looking at. The right side of the screen is taking a look at reducing another $500,000. This was difficult to get to, and there was a lot of conversation around that. You can see some of the bigger items. Just strategic asks is the fund that we look at to help upgrade different areas of the institutions or classrooms or spaces that really haven't been targeted with other budgetary allocations over the years. Reduction to capital outlay for whatever it is across the college. The learning spaces, which is our improvement to our classrooms. That's come down because with COVID, we did receive extra dollars during those times. So we were able to upgrade more classrooms than anticipated during that time with that money. So kind of slowing down on that. And then other travels and supplies. So overall, you know, we're looking at the cuts that you see on the screen. And it does have an impact on our students and their experiences as we're looking at cutting supplies, materials, and travel along with this. So it does decrease the student experience while they're at KCKCC, and in turn that decreases learning opportunities. The total reduction, if we did another full mill, would be really $5 million to the institution at one hit. Just as a reminder, as we look to the future, these are the numbers over 10 years. But one of the things that we're trying to do is play catch up as an institution who has not had money to invest heavily in programs and new programs. And the employers that are listed there and others, we've had ongoing conversations with about how do we meet their workforce needs. And as we meet their workforce needs, really what we're talking about is student success, because we can take individuals from our community, and right now just a little under 60% of our enrollment comes from Wyandotte County, and prepare them where they could get jobs in these companies and others, and literally making $50,000 to $75,000 a year as a base income, and as we've talked about before, making over $100,000 a year with overtime. And I don't know of any better way that we could serve our students and our community than putting them in the position to come from poverty into prosperity and making six figures over the course of maybe a year or two. We're also looking at starting new programs. So just as a reminder, we want to get the high voltage program launched. It will cost between $1.5 and $2 million to get that program launched. And then again, our students and our graduates and our community members will have the opportunity to make $50,000 to $70,000 a year. So, we're talking about programs, we're talking about equipment, but we're really talking about students and students' lives and their opportunity to better their lives through education and through opportunities in obtaining and maintaining high wage, high demand career opportunities. I've used this example before, but again, just for maybe people who are with us from the community who have not heard of this yet, we do have the one semester IMT as an example, where students can make between $50,000 to $60,000 a year on their base income and $100,000 a year with overtime. And then the new programs that we're going to add in advanced manufacturing and construction, again, earning those same types of dollars. So not only is it student success, it's really community success by adding upwards of $5 million annually to the Wyandotte County economy. right? So it's raising all boats. It's raising, you know, the life of our students and our graduates. But then from the tax perspective, which is why I think, you know, we're having this conversation here tonight, KCKCC, we create taxpayers. So as we're doing all this student success, creating student success, we're lessening the burden of our local taxpayers by creating more taxpayers. So really, we are one of the best opportunities that Wyandotte County has to diversify our tax base, create more taxpayers, and in return, then we have more money coming in from more people. That's what's going to really significantly reduce the tax burden in Wyandotte County. As we talk about long-range planning too, you know, we've been looking at where we've created the master facility plan, which will be presented to the Board of Trustees at the September meeting at 9 o'clock. You know, when we don't have to do all of these items, right? And this is a 15 or a 20, 25-year plan. But some of the things where we can best provide good educational and learning opportunities for our students and student success, these yellow programs that I've highlighted up top are some of the ones that we would want to implement. So if we were to have an early college at KCKCC, which many colleges across the country have, which are proven to be extremely successful, we could have approximately 300 high school students here on main campus, and they would be doing their junior and their senior year of high school, and they would be doing an associate's degree at the same time through concurrent enrollment. That also has an economic impact on the communities and the families because they don't pay for the tuition. So it's costing each family of an early college graduate, it's saving their family about $7,000, $7,500. So if you multiply that times 300 and multiply that times 10 years and ongoing, you can see the great economic impact and the saving of money for our community members and why this is important. Now, to get the early college, we need to move the services out of the Learning Commons into a different area. So that actually takes the second line at that $10 million, the Jewel Learning Commons, creating that space above the current one and moving everything over so that we can use the Learning Commons as the early college. Another one that's really important, we believe, is moving the community education and the programs out of CEB, which are ESL and GED, which are now kind of isolated and they don't integrate, the students don't integrate with the rest of our KCKCC students. So if we put them in the mixture of our buildings, then they'll better integrate with our students and they're going to be more apt to continue from non-credit education and ESL and GED into college certificate and degree bearing programs. And then, you know, I could go down the list, but those four programs are about $40 million. And what we were looking at if we did another mill cut is $40 million. So this could be a potential loss in our ability to move this forward for our students and for our community. The total dollar amount's about $161 million. These slides we looked at the other night, we are good stewards of our taxpayers, of our community. But I bring this up tonight to emphasize that we are the lowest mill rate of all taxing entities. And taking it one step further, not just to emphasize that we are the lowest mill rate, but I think it's important for anyone who's paying attention to taxes and the different entities that a mill does not equal a mill, right? So if we look at what one mill brings KCKCC, it's just shy of $2 million. So the $93 million is the reduction after we take out the one-time grants and rollover money, which elevates our budget over 100 million for this year, but the true operational is about 93 million. So one mill is 2% of our budget, okay? The unified government, their mill rate, if we look at the combination of the county, which is the same as ours, and the city, which is a little bit lower, and average those two mill rates, it's $1.93 million per mill. They have a proposed budget of $461 million for this coming year. So one mill to the UG is only 0.42%. It's not even a full percent. Looking at USD 500, and I'm not an expert in this, it's a more complicated. One mill for them is about $1.07 million. So an operational budget of 354 million. This is for FY 2023 because it's more exact that we can pull these numbers. And again, similar like we're doing is pulling out our one-time funds. They also have a match to their funds where if they lose $1 in revenue from the mill levy, they'll lose 75 cents from the state for every single dollar. So this excludes state match, but it puts it at about 1/3 of 1%. Again, these are rough numbers. If we include the match, it brings the mill rate up to about 2 million. So every one mill for USD 500 is approximately 0.5%. So for us though, again, remember it's 2%. So if the UG is talking about reducing mills, right? And they talk about reduce one mill, reduce two mills. If we were to reduce a mill, it cost us $2 million and it's 2% of our budget. An equitable cut for the unified government with their total budget, for every mill we cut, they would have to cut 5.5 mills, right? Because it's not the same. It's not the same percentage of their budget. With the USD 500, without the match, it's about 6.8, but more realistic because they get matching money from the state. For every mill that we would cut to be equivalent, it's about 3.5 mills. So a mill is not a mill is not a mill is the point there. So when we're reducing a mill, we're taking a lot larger chunk out of our budget than all the other organizations around us because they have higher number of mills to start with. So in closing thoughts, again, we looked at our mission, our vision, what are we trying to accomplish and do the most good for current students and for the future of Wyandotte County. So I think it's, again, important to focus on the socioeconomic status of our citizens in Wyandotte County, and people on the eastern half, about half of them live in poverty. Well, we have to do something about that. We do have the highest wage in Kansas, which is something to be proud of. You can see all the capital investment, but it's not doing us any good if we're not educating our community so that they can make good wages, so they can have health care, that they can learn to eat healthy and live a healthier life. And hopefully we'll get off the bottom of the chart as a county, because right now we're at 104th with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation on the health outcomes of Wyandotte County. So we've done a lot of great work, but we have a lot of great work to do. And unfortunately, in this new environment, in high-tech jobs, high-wage, high-demand jobs, they're expensive to put in, but they provide a great benefit for our students. So just provide these items as the things for the board and the community to think about as we move forward with our budget discussions. And then I'll just kind of turn it over to Dr. Knieven to talk more in depth about the 3 different options that we were looking at.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mosier, for that. And I appreciate all the data that you've shared. I think it gives a great foundation for the discussion. So on the screen, what you see is the totals of the revenues based on what was proposed, the 1 mil reduction, 1.5 mil reduction, or 2 mil reduction. And as you'll see there, and Dr. Mosier highlighted this, but I want to make sure that we're understanding or sharing the information in a way that is clear. So with what was proposed, in addition to the motor vehicles and the state aid Senate Bill 155 decreases that Dr. Mosier had talked about, Dr. Mosier had talked about, that's nearly $1 million. So the additional 1 mil reduction was another couple of million. So a total of 3 really is the net effect of option 1. So then with the additional $0.5 mil reduction on top of what was proposed, that's an additional, it's there on the screen, the 982, 933. So in round numbers, about another $1 million reduction. And then if you add on another $0.5 mil for a full 2 mil reduction, it's again another 982 with that full impact of 3.9 million. And that's in addition to the almost $1 million in motor vehicles taxes and the state aid reductions. So that's the net impact. And if we can look at the next screen, what we did is came up with our proposals. And so the process we used, Dr. Mosier touched on this for a moment, but we had all of the cabinet members work on review their areas, and they looked at the past spending, the trends, but it wasn't across the board. It was strategic reductions to try to minimize the impact on students, but these proposed changes will impact students. But we were also looking at our mission, our vision, our strategic plan to try and provide and put forth the best recommendations we could. So on this screen, what you see is the different categories. So those are the natural classifications. So salaries and benefits, contractual services, supplies, etc. Another way to look at this is to look at it in what's called in accounting the functional classifications. So that would be the physical plant, like facilities, academic services, student services. So I'll highlight just a couple of examples that are included in these numbers so you get a feel for what's being brought to you as some of the options. So you'll see under salary and benefits and that option 2, we're looking at $50,000 reduction in salaries. And that is an effort that we have included in the budget to do some equity adjustments for our employees. This is to try and equalize employees based on their total experience and make sure that they are placed correctly in their pay grade. And this $50,000 reduction would slow the implementation of that. Although we would still be able to do some of that, it would slow the implementation. Under contractual services, just a little bit of examples there. So that would be a variety of things. We've got for the theater department, the social science department, we've got electronic books for the library. So just a variety of different things under contractual services that were included in there. Again, trying to make sure that we can support the students, but also make the reductions that need to be made in order to achieve these revenue goals, revenue reduction goals. For supplies and other operating expenses, probably the biggest amount of that for this, again, this is on option 2, is in the area of travel and training. So training of our employees and then travel of our students. We have made a variety of reductions, in particular in the athletics department. So less travel for athletics, but again, trying to, balance the reductions with the needs of the teams and the students. It also includes, debate travel, exercise science travel. So there's some additional travel included in there. And then just a variety of supplies and expenses that are also proposed for reductions. And that includes everything from automotive technology to instrumental. So it's across a lot of different areas, both in academic as well as in student services. One of the bigger areas that you'll see reductions on the screen is that under repairs and maintenance to plant. So that $535,183. And that is one of the recommendations that we are bringing forward is that we would reduce under option 2, the learning spaces budget by $150,000. And that is the budget where we've been outfitting and updating our classrooms over the last 5 years. We've made great progress. We've included in the budget that was proposed to you all a total of $500,000, and this would cut $150,000 of that funding for this coming year. So there would still be some funding, but we would not be able to do as many classrooms. We also had proposed slowing our parking lot and parking lot light replacement program, reducing vehicles for the fleet, as well as the police department, college furniture, which is classroom furniture that just might break, reducing that budget. So that's all included. Those are examples in repairs to maintenance and plant. And then the final item there is the strategic opportunities. And we've been able to include $1,250,000 in the last few years. It's allowed us to do some very good and important projects that are one-time expenses. But we propose cutting that for option 2 by $250,000. So we would still have funding for that. We would have to go through a process to reprioritize the needs and the projects to reduce those, but it's everything from scoreboard and game tables for the field house to refreshing the financial aid office and the business office that are student facing. So there's a variety of things that are included in that. So that is a nature of what's included in that option 2. Then likewise in option 3, we again continued the process of looking at where we could make reductions. And as you'll see there, we did additional reductions in contractual services. Again, that's going to be a variety of small reductions across relatively small budgets, frankly, that would then impact quite across the board. Not nearly every department, but a lot of departments would be affected by that. And then we would also be proposing cutting supplies and operating expenses. Again, that's everything from in the academic area, math, bio, manufacturing, office assistant program, art department, music program, choral program, and the list goes on. So it's a reduction across a lot of programs. And then let's see, as well as some travel and training that we propose to be reduced as well. And that's everything from facilities, personnel being trained to the, an example of travel would be in the military center, the student housing staff. So there's travel and training that's included throughout the reductions that would be included in that supplies and other operating expenses. On utilities, that was just taking a finer point to where we think we could achieve some savings in utilities. We are forecasting a 3% increase, and that's looking at our actual costs and trends. So there wasn't a lot that we could do there. And then additional capital repairs and maintenance to plant, that's going to be additional capital reductions. So one of the bigger things there is reducing the learning spaces budget again. So it would be reduced by another 150,000. So that would leave 200. So in the last 5 years, we've had 500,000. So option 2 takes that down to 350, and option 3 takes that down to 200. So we would be able to do some modest improvements in some of the classrooms, probably more focused on furniture to re-outfit some of the classrooms, but not as extensive renovation work that we've been doing and need to be doing. We've identified a variety of needs. We've also identified that just throughout all the departments, we would reduce capital outlay for the departments. These would be purchasing equipment. It would be replacement items that are capital throughout all of the departments, and that's included in that amount. Reducing the construction budget for facilities in terms of construction and renovations that we would be doing throughout the year. That's another 125,000. So the biggest area of reduction is in that repairs to maintenance and plant. Cumulative, you can see off to the right. Strategic opportunities was the next area we looked at, about reducing it by another 250,000. Again, we would have to go through a process to internally reprioritize those, but it would take that budget from $1,250,000 down to 750. And then finally, just reducing the contingency fund that we've set up. We often have things that we have to adjust because the expenses come in higher. That can be anything from legal fees to insurance rates, et cetera. So having a contingency fund appropriated is helpful to us. But again, we were looking for how to achieve that cumulative impact. So I'll pause there. That's a lot of information. There's a lot more detail that goes into this, but it was a process that the team took very seriously and tried to identify those areas where we could continue to achieve our mission and yet make some reductions. And although there's things that we wouldn't be able to do in the coming year, trying to make sure we stay true to our core business of providing education. So overall, that gives you the funding reductions that we would need. And this is a summary. So, we would look for direction from the board. We had proposed a budget that had included in it the $1,965,000. And if it is 1.5 mils total, then that would be an additional 982. So a total of 2.948. And then if we were given direction to cut the full second mill, that's an additional 1,965,000 for a total impact of $3,931,730, and that's in addition to that motor vehicle and the state aid reduction of close to $1 million. So I'm glad to answer questions if there are some, and provide whatever information might be helpful in the decision making.
Great, thank you, Dr. Knieven. Trustee Criswell, I guess I'd turn it back to you and we'll go from there. Whatever conversations the board would like to have, if they would like to go back and look at any in particular slides, we're happy to do that as well. So if you just let us know.
Could we go back one
Yeah,
slide, just to show the amounts?
Yeah, you're muted, Trustee Criswell.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So Dr. Knieven, I presume, or Dr. Moser, either one, does what you've proposed here, what we're looking at on this slide here, does not tap into any of our reserves. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct. And
Okay.
taking the strategy that, as we look at this as if it were our personal budgets, to cut back on spending, we need to cut back on what we're doing now. But we shouldn't be not putting money in the bank, in the savings for our future. So that was the reason why the reserves are untouched, because I just don't believe that that's a a good strategy to go for the future of the college.
No, I understand. I just wanted it to be clear for everyone that we would not be doing that short of some kind of emergency or something. All right, thank
Correct.
you.
Thank you, Trustee Yes. Vice Chair Isnar, did you have a question about the slide?
I think I was going the same place that Dawn was. I was just looking at that reserves line, but that answered my question.
Oh, wonderful.
And I guess, this is Trustee Sutton. The thing that kind of confused me was the assessment that we got in the mail. As much as it went up, I didn't think it would affect our budgets this much. I am against cutting anything for the students because that's why we are here. Surely cuts could be made somewhere else. And the other thing is, this is a difficult place to be right now because if we're going to make all these cuts, and it seems like we should make some cuts, but then if we're building, people don't understand that. People don't understand how we can be building and then we're making cuts. It just makes us look like we are not being above board about something. So that's confusing to the community. And to anyone in the community who may be listening, I understand what you're saying. You don't see what you get from the community college like you do District 500 and the UG. So we've just got to do what we can to serve the community that we are supposed to be serving. So. And I think one of the things that I was hearing from the community, and I did hear too, is when I said people don't see what they get from us. For example, someone said to me, how you're taxing us. The community college used to be a place where we could come and have events, and now you're pricing it where we can't really rent the facilities or come on campus, so you don't really want us. So what I'm saying to the board and the administration is somehow we've got to make the community feel welcome and that they can come on the campus because they are paying for it. So I understand, what you're saying about this. And
I appreciate those comments, Trustee Sutton, but I'll just reconfirm that the process for community members or groups or organizations to come and use the facilities has not changed. It's been in place long before I was here, and we're just still continuing to follow that process. And if someone submits a waiver, then we do look at it. And most of the time we do waive unless it's a for-profit function.
Okay, well, that's not the experience I've been hearing. And what the complaint is that the prices went up. And so you can understand people say the common person can't afford these facilities. And so we don't want that to be out there because we are asking them for money. And the community college is the place where people come from the performing arts to the Jewel Center to have events. And so.
Madam Chair, in order to move this forward, I'm going to make a motion. And I'd like to speak to the motion after I make it. I'm going to move that we approve the budget as presented at the last board meeting, which was a 1% reduction in the mill. I just think I go back again, I thought a lot about this because those were very good comments made last time. And I, like you, have been in the community long enough to know the dire straits people are in. But the bottom line is we're an educational institution, and our role is to provide the very best education we can provide to our community. And we just passed a ambitious strategic plan, which is going to cost money. We just passed a technology plan, which we've all said is extremely important to moving our students forward in this world. We've got that facilities plan sitting out there. I'm just reluctant to do anything that begins to take resources away from our teachers, our staff, and our students. And I know how hard this is. I mean, I wish we could do something more, but the reality is, if we're going to do what our mission is, and that is provide the best quality education we can do, then I think the proposal was made at the last board meeting of 1 mil reduction is the right one. And so I'm going to move that we approve that proposal was made at the last board meeting.
I'm
Okay,
gonna jump in.
And the mill that you're recommending is the 1 mil reduction at 26.375, correct, trustee Daniels?
That's correct.
Okay,
Madam
just for the record, I just want to make sure I have the correct.
Option 1 is what was presented at the last board
Yeah.
meeting to Dr. Knieven.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my that's my motion, and we approve that that motion, that proposal was made at the last board meeting.
I'm gonna jump in real
Trustee
quick and
Green.
I'm gonna jump in real quick and second that motion. And like Ray, I spent a lot of time sort of reviewing what we heard at our open session. And what I came away with was what we heard the most of was state revenue neutral. And we absolutely cannot, in good conscience, do that to this college budget and still provide the service to the community that we're designed to provide. So the 1 mil reduction leaves us in a position out of all the taxing entities to be able to say, we're the one that reduced. Remember, we're the one that reduced. Because I don't think you're going to see it from anybody but us. But that's not the only reason to do it. The reason to do it is because this is our effort at showing the community, yes, we want to move forward. Yes, we add almost $2 value for every dollar you give us. Yes, we're educating your students to become $100,000 taxpayers, but we're also listening to you. And we understand that tax burdens right now are tough. So I think it's the best of both worlds. So I second the adoption of option 1.
Okay, before we move forward, is there anyone else who wants to make a comment or has any question, any board members?
Well, yes, I would say to the community, in light of what we're being told, the cuts that would hurt the students, I don't want those cuts to happen. The students should bear the brunt of what's happening. So for that reason, I will agree with what was proposed last week. And because of the students, that goes to my heart. We just can't cut to the students like that.
Okay, so you're talking about, again, option 1,
Yes.
1 reduction at 26.375. Is that correct, trustee Hoskins Sutton?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
Okay.
Chair Criswell. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, go ahead.
I just want to make a side comment as a thank you to staff, because what I don't want to see the number on is how much it cost us for all of you to put your heads together and bring us these other options on such short notice. I know that was hard work on your part, and I appreciate that hard work. And I know there was literally a financial cost to asking you all to do this work, but option 1 looks good to me.
Totally agree with Pat's comments. Thank you. Thanks for staff for a job really well done.
Well done indeed. Thanks for the late nights. We appreciate you.
I'll echo that.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I do agree with what Trustee Bruni just said. I think that what I took away from our last meeting was that we've still got a lot of work to do when it comes to that community engagement piece and telling our story and what the return on that investment means. And that's going to be, looking forward to the future as we've got new board members joining and some rolling off. We're going to have to keep that in mind, because I wanted to see the options. I do appreciate the extra work that went into that. I think that the 1.5 or 2 mil reductions are too drastic of a change to the budget with the increased costs that we're already committed to. But again, with telling our story. I think some of the comments that we heard that day, there was a lot of confusion between this budget discussion and then the downtown campus at the same time. And I do hope that the community understands that we are not increasing your tax rate to pay for the downtown campus. We have already set aside money for years for that project and fundraised the majority of it. So I want to help kind of decouple those two issues if we can. And we may need to continue some messaging around that just so that people understand better.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Any other trustee comments or questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Don. I want to echo the sentiment to Dr. Mosher and Dr. Knieven for all of the work in bringing us these options for us to look at. You know, there's really hard parts about all of this. I'm probably going to vote no on the motion because I would personally, I would favor another $0.5 mil reduction, but I will fully support however the motion passes or whatever happens there. I'm not interested in, you know, cutting things out or stopping the train from moving, just maybe slowing it down a little bit. And so I want you all to understand that I believe what I believe, and that doesn't make me right and everybody else wrong or vice versa. It's just where I'm at. And however the vote goes here on the motion, I certainly will support it. So thank you for all of the hard work in providing these options, and thank everybody for the good, robust discussion about it. It's very much needed. Thank you.
Yes, trustee. Yes, Trustee Ash. Same here. It seems like to keep things moving, the option one is the way to go, but I still, you know, don't agree with it. So but I don't want things cut to students.
If I may add clarity to that, there have been no reductions in option one. That was how the budget was created at that dollar amount. The additional cuts would come under option 2 and 3.
Yes, Dr. Mosher, I understand that. Yes. And that's what's aching at my heart is the option is the 1.5 and the cuts that's proposed towards students.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I would just say thank you to the staff for doing all the work and putting this all together. There was a significant amount of time taken by everyone on cabinet and reaching out to deans for information and such as well. So it goes multiple levels. So I appreciate all their hard work and efforts and the good conversation had here tonight.
Excellent. Okay, we've received a motion from Trustee Daniels for option 1 at 1 mil. And that would be at 26.375. We've received a second from Trustee Bruni. Are we ready to make our decision? Anything else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to call for a motion to certify excuse me, I did that backwards. Sorry about that. Excuse me, let's try that again. I'd like to call for the board approval of the revised FY 2024 budget.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, and the motion carries. All right, thank you again, everyone. We realize that, you know, it takes time to get here and it takes effort, which we've seen just a tremendous amount of, not only on the part of the president, the cabinet, faculty and staff, but also as board members. We appreciate everyone taking it seriously. We appreciate everyone listening and respecting each other and really just helping to cut through and clarify what it is that we need to be doing and where we need to be. And it's okay that we don't all agree about the same thing. That's okay, you know, but it's our job to have these discussions, and you guys just, I appreciate you is what I want to say, you know, because it's important to have these discussions and make these decisions. So thank you for your time as well. Anything else before we adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We are
Everybody have a
adjourned.
good evening.
Thank you
Right.
so
Night
much.
all.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.